All right, Aftershocks, Tremors. We're back here with another discussion episode. Matt Hartman and Chris Aiken with you once again. And what's going on, Chris? How you doing on this glorious Saturday morning?
Well, it is cold over here, my friend. I mean, it is a whopping
Yeah.
9 degrees as I speak to
Ooh,
you.
yikes!
That's making you wish you'd go back to New York, right?
Absolutely fucking nuts.
I'm
Yeah,
with
that is
you.
the one. So one thing I don't miss, man, are those long winters, man. It's once
Yeah,
you get a taste of the California winters, it's really hard to kind of go back to that
yep.
those long winters, back in the East Coast and Midwest and so forth. But
Dude, that
yeah.
first winter when I moved back here from living in Fort Ord in the Monterey
Mhm,
area.
mhm.
Oh, that first winter, because I got real used to it. I was there
Sure.
3 winters. And in
Mhm.
the 3 winters, I think the average temperature was like 70.
Oh
you
wow,
know
yeah.
it
Mhm.
didn't get
Exactly.
cold, and
No.
it was like
Mm.
then I got back here, and I should have been aware going over the mountain there over in Reno or wherever,
Mhm. The Sierras.
right on
Yeah, yeah.
40
The Sierras. Mhm.
where you have to put the chains on your tires
Yep.
or else you're not allowed on
Uh-huh.
the
You
road.
can go up there. Yep. Mhm.
That should have been my warning shot that, well, maybe I should stay here. But but I'll still, you know what? You can have the bad taxes and the bad government, and
Oh
I'll
yeah.
take the cold weather. I'll trade.
Yeah.
I'll
I get it. Mhm. Like anything, exactly. There's plenty of bad to go along with this good weather that's out here. Absolutely,
exactly.
especially these days, man. No doubt.
Yepper.
Yeah, but yeah, but so anyway, I mean, it's as we've been doing, we've done about what 6 or 7 of these episodes right now
Hmm.
on the current state of the music business.
Sure.
So whenever we come across an interesting topic or something newsworthy that's happening, we definitely want to bring it to the audience and to our listeners. And I did come
Sure.
across within the last week or so, I came across this really great column, this article. It's titled "Old Music Is Old Music Killing New Music?" And this kind
Sure.
of touches on a bunch of stuff that we've talked about, obviously, on some of these episodes we've done. It was written by this guy's a great writer. He's a professor. He's a jazz musician and a journalist and author as well. This guy's name is Ted Gioia. I actually hit him up
Okay.
about trying to get him on here, and he wanted to do it, but he was saying he had like 12 interview requests this week from this article.
Oh wow.
He's writing a book. He just couldn't do it. He's too busy. But so
Sure.
he politely declined. But this guy, even though he's not in the rock world or metal world, this type of article, it doesn't really matter. It expands the whole music business in general.
Sure.
So I thought this would be a really good thing to talk about here.
Hmm.
I think it's one of the most important and informative pieces of information that I've kind of come across, within the last, I'd say, year or so. And
Okay.
it begs the question. It's true, man. So is old music killing new music? Um, let's just start with some of the data that he has here in the article.
Okay.
I'm gonna quote a lot of this stuff as we go. The first thing, okay, so according to the latest numbers from MRC Data, it's a music analytic firm.
Okay.
Okay, old songs now represent 70% of the US market. 70%. Now,
Wow.
I don't know about you, man, but that doesn't spell good news for a lot of these new bands that if they're thinking about making a career and playing music.
Not at
Um,
all.
that's going to have you kind of, maybe questioning that decision if you're a musician out there right now.
Hmm.
And it gets even worse. So not only that, the new music market in general is shrinking. I mean, the growth in the market it's coming from all old songs. So he puts in the article here, the 200 most popular new tracks, okay, that are, obviously here in the US, the 200 most popular new tracks now account for less than 5% total streams,
Hmm.
where 3 years ago it was twice as high. So basically, as we know, I mean, and me and you know this from our friends and colleagues and so forth, nobody is listening to new music anymore, man.
Now, I'm going to stop you there just for
Yeah.
a
Mhm.
question that I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
When they say streams,
Hmm.
does that include YouTube?
Yes, that includes YouTube.
Okay, because if it
Yes.
includes YouTube, that's a little shocking.
Hmm.
If it's just the services, that wouldn't shock me as much because I know the kids are on YouTube. So.
Yeah.
But
No,
go
it's
ahead. Go ahead.
but yeah, no. So anyway, those are just the main first two pieces of
Hmm.
information I want to throw out there. And like I said, like I said, to us, I don't think this is real surprising. Like I said, most people we know, they're what are they doing? They're listening to old stuff.
Sure.
Um, and I think I mean, I'll go ahead with some of my, maybe I guess thoughts on this in terms
Sure.
of why people really aren't listening to new music and it's just old stuff. One of the reasons, obviously, besides obviously it being the music that we all grew up with, and a lot of people just, I think naturally when you get older, I saw it with my dad and my uncles and so forth, my parents. You get sort of to a spot in your life and you stop, discovering new music. A lot of people, like guys like us, yeah,
Sure.
we're junkies. We're always going to be looking for new stuff. But some people, they're just so comfortable in what they listened to growing up with, and they never really liked anything else that came afterwards. So I
Right.
think one of the reasons, other than that, is you've got a lot of people like for instance, one of the reasons if I listen to old stuff, a lot of times it has to do with, the fact that, back in the day, I mean, we were paying 15 to 20 bucks a pop on a CD, right? And
Hmm.
we didn't really we'd go in a record store, we'd see a cool CD or something that looked cool, looked real metal, and we're like, oh, hey,
Sure.
this looks something I'd want to maybe check out. But we
Hmm.
had no way of listening to it before we bought it for the most part. So we had
Right.
to take that chance. So now for me personally, when I see, I'll go on a Spotify or whatever, and I'll check out, listen to these albums that I remember seeing back in the day that I couldn't really afford to buy because I mean,
Hmm.
I did it all the time where I'd throw down 20 bucks and took a chance on CDs, but you couldn't do it that much. Couldn't afford to do that for 10 CDs you wanted to get, or you looked at that looked interesting. You'd probably do it to one or
Sure.
two.
Hmm.
So for me, I love going back now and being able to listen to a lot of those CDs that I wanted to check out and that I couldn't. And then a lot of them I wind up being good and I start listening to it because I
Sure.
didn't really hear it back in the day. So I think
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons, my opinion. So what's your take? Why do you think that that old music now is just destroying, new music these days?
Man, there's a million reasons. I mean,
Mhm.
we can go to the little tiny things or we can go to the big thing. I'll start with the littlest, tiniest things. I'll
Okay.
start with the tiniest things that I think make a huge, huge difference.
Okay.
You remember when you bought picking out what is your favorite album of all time that you actually own a vinyl copy of?
That I own a vinyl copy of,
Yep,
Fear Factory's demanufacture. It's always my go-to.
perfect. When you first got that record,
Mhm.
you opened it up, you read every word, right? You
Mhm.
read not only the lyrics, you read who was on it, you read who was the producer, you read who was the engineer,
Yep.
you read every word in the thank yous to see if there was
Mhm.
anybody in a band that you knew
Exactly. Yep.
or maybe even somebody that you knew. Because Fear Factory spent a lot of time in New York. So for you, you might have
Mhm.
been looking for actual names that you knew.
It's true. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I
Mhm.
mean,
Absolutely.
we gravitated to that. That was one of my favorite things ever doing was
Mhm.
getting a record and putting it on and just reading the shit that came with it while it played that first time. That first time
Mhm.
and it created such an excitement for me anyway.
Mhm.
You go to a streaming service, any streaming service, the picture is that big, if
Mhm.
that. It's tiny. You can't tell who plays on anything. You don't know who's the players. It just
Mhm.
doesn't tell you. I mean, 99% of the time it does not tell you that here is like I'll use Machine Head as an example. They're getting ready to put out a new record. Now,
Mhm.
unless you're a hardcore fan, and I mean a hardcore fan, are you going to know who's playing on the new Machine Head record? No,
Yeah. No, you're right.
no
Mhm.
way, because
No,
they
true.
lost two guys.
Mhm.
They lost two guys, and the third guy that's in there now is a replacement player.
Mhm.
So you're literally going to be trying to figure out who the hell's in the band, and you're not going to figure it out by looking at there's nothing to look at.
Mhm.
If the streaming services wanted to do themselves a service, they would put the artwork into some sort of clickable PDF format that people could get excited about music again.
Mhm.
One of the reasons it's so disposable is because there's nothing to it anymore.
Mhm.
It's just
Just
it's
sound.
just it's
Yeah.
just noise.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's no and to piggyback on your point of it too, as we all hated paying for music. Every one of us hated paying for music.
Absolutely.
Most of us, I'm not going to say everybody, but I'll admit it to me, most of us stole a lot of it.
Mhm.
We'd go into a Kmart and we'd distract the
Yeah.
store
Oh, yeah.
clerk and we'd stick a tape or two in our pocket and
Absolutely.
out the door we'd go. That's what we did
Mhm. No doubt. Yep.
because we couldn't afford it. but we had such a commitment to that shit. You know, I have records that or tapes rather, that I don't listen to now, but I still have the tapes because I got away with stealing them. And I know that's dumb, but like I have Golden Earring, the one with the bullet hits the bone on it. You know, whatever that song, the Twilight Zone. You know, I have that tape here in the house. Why? Because I stole it.
You stole it.
and it's I remember the moment. You know, I remember the moment. And it was like that when you bought music back then. When it's free, it's like anything that's free. It when it's free, it doesn't matter. You know,
that's true.
It's like,
yeah,
like anything that's handed to you for free,
it loses its value, and it does. Yep.
You know, it's just it doesn't have anything that makes you remember it, because it's just you didn't have to earn it, you didn't have to work for it. And you know, that's a huge problem. You know, I'll let you go because I have a million reasons on this.
No, absolutely. No, and there's a lot of reasons. I mean, one of the other things too that I noticed too is, you know, there's also just no hype in music. You know, I mean, even commercial radio now is they're playing old hits. They're not focusing on new music. And if they do, they're mixing it in with the old hits, which I think is fine. I think that's good because at least it gets, if you've got, you know, listeners that want to listen to old stuff, at least you're mixing in some new music in there to sort of help them maybe open their ears a little bit to some new stuff. But, you know, I mean, one of the things that I think, you know, that used to happen, okay, was music had a very cultural impact, you know, and that's something that we've talked about obviously previously too before on you know, a couple of these episodes we've done. You know, never before really history where with music, there's never been a point in history where new tracks that were like the mega hits like they are now have no real, you know, cultural impact. You know, a lot of the songs that, you know, become now big hits these days, they go completely unnoticed by most of the population, you know, where it used to be that even if you weren't in to certain, you know, top 40 or top 10 kind of hits, you knew who they were and you know the songs. You know, no matter what, even if you didn't sit there and listen to it, you knew who it was. These days, I mean, how many times you sit there and go, or if someone, you know, I'm looking on, say, you know, something online, looking at some news thing, and they're talking about, you know, Billie Eilish or something. You know, it's just like, okay, I hear this name, but I don't know really what their songs are. You know, I just hear the name. Where in the past, you knew. You know, when Prince was at the top of the charts or whoever, I mean, you knew it was Prince. You knew these, you know, Madonna, whoever it was, you knew who these people were because they were so part of culture.
And it wasn't just the people. Let's be honest. I'm going to guess that you do not like Bruce Springsteen. That's a guess.
I like some of the stuff. I'm not a Bruce fan like you, but I like some Springsteen.
How about Madonna?
I actually do like Madonna. I do.
Damn it, I'm losing on this one. Give me one that you don't like. That's U2. You like U2?
I did. I liked U2 as a kid. Yeah.
Damn it. My thought anyway. How about Cougar? John Cougar.
John Cougar. Sorry, man. I liked it. I like John Cougar.
All right, damn it.
You know.
Police.
I love the Police, man.
Ugh,
any of the rock pop stuff in the 80s, I'm pretty much I kind of like.
And I was the same way, although I hated the Police. So I'll use the Police in my own example instead of you.
Okay.
I did not like the Police at all. I really despised listening to them. I hated Sting's voice.
Okay.
That being said, I could name 10 songs in a heartbeat from the Police. That is the difference. You can't. Billie Eilish has like 1 billion plays on whatever medium she's on. And I can name one, and me who listens to that kind of music can name one song. I can name the Bad Guy song, and that's it.
That's it.
You know, that's the difference. There is no hype because, well, a couple reasons that there's no hype. Number one, there's nowhere to be hyped about.
Well,
where do you hear this stuff?
No, good point.
You know, there's really no radio for it. There's really no TV for it. There's no MTV. There's no Fuse. There's no Much Music. There's no VH1. You know, there's YouTube, and YouTube is on demand. So if you don't know the name, you don't check it out.
Yeah. No, it's good. And you're right. And that's, I think, a great point is you're right. Where no place is hyping music, or if they are, that's not, you know, we don't know where it is. It's not something like you said, there's no MTV where it's right. You know, you put it on, it's just in the background playing. There's not on the radio. Like you said, we used to read all magazines. That's when like you said, but once again, when music information became free, as we were talking about before, where anything
Mhm.
free just kind of loses its value. Well, now information and songs, everything's free. And
Mhm.
so it's not that big of it doesn't have that sort of, like you said, hype or mystique or whatever to it, where yeah, you get excited about it. It's just like, okay, well, there's a new song by this band. Good. And like you said, these days you listen to something, it's forgotten as much
Yeah,
as it is when you first hear it. It's
absolutely.
so it's and Joya, the author here, he does he says basically in this article, he says that, because of there's no hype and because it has such little cultural impact on society anymore with these new songs and popular hits and so forth. Overall, it's really a repudiation of the whole pop
Right.
culture industry,
Sure.
which is always focused usually on what's happening now, not
Yeah.
back then.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know,
and you know what? And this is one place I think he sort of missed the mark, unless I missed it reading the article.
Mhm.
But he talked a lot about that there's no cultural relevance to the music, and I agree with him. There isn't,
Huh.
but he didn't really focus on the reason. And the reason is because there's no need for it now. We have social media, so everybody's part of the cultural revolution that's going on right now. Everybody is active on it. You
That's a good
don't
point. Yeah,
need you don't need a theme song. You don't need 4 Dead in Ohio to be pissed off about the government shooting kids.
good
You
point.
know,
Mhm.
if there's a shooting today, you'll read about it 33 seconds after the bullet hits the bone,
Mhm.
on Twitter.
Mhm.
There's and everybody's not looking for somebody to be the beacon of light of their idea.
Sure. Mhm.
All of those bands that were Woodstock bands, I'll just call them Woodstock bands.
Mhm.
All of the Joan Baez, Joni Mitchells, Neil Young,
Mhm.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Creedence, etc. All of those bands were looked to as this beacon of they represented the generation.
Yes. Mhm.
There's zero need to represent the generation. I can look on Twitter in 13 seconds and figure out what millennials think, what Gen X thinks, what Gen Y thinks.
Mhm.
I don't need sticks to sing me a song to tell me it anymore.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
and
Yeah. Great point.
these kids know it. They know that they are kids today don't want to be rock stars anymore. Dude, every kid we knew in some way, shape, or form wanted to be a rock star.
Mhm.
You ask a kid that's 18, 19, 16 years old, whatever, what they want, they'll tell you they want to be a YouTuber.
YouTuber. Absolutely.
They
Mhm.
want to be an influencer. They want to,
Yep.
they have no interest in learning a skill and then being the best at it. Their skill is turn on their camera and say something funny or eat fucking Clorox pads or some shit.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah. Mhm. You're right.
That's the difference, man. There's no where he kept talking about the cultural thing. I really was like, well, there's no need for a cultural band.
Mhm.
Even the last what was the last culturally relevant band? Rage
Uh,
Against the Machine?
I mean, it's been a while. That's a good point. I don't know.
I would say
Probably something
Rage.
along the lines, probably something from the '90s like that. Yeah, absolutely. It's been years. You're
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
I mean, I think that's one of but I think that's one of the reasons why just music isn't as prevalent in people's lives as it
mhm,
once were, like you said,
yeah,
because of the advent of social media.
yeah.
And now, like you
Well,
said, everybody's not wanting to take their time to be a rock star or work hard to become
sure,
something. Like you said, they want to be instant stars on YouTube because you
sure.
can be in a lot of ways. Stuff can go
Mhm,
viral if you keep doing it, work hard at it, and you bust your tail doing it. It can happen. So,
sure.
and it's easy
Well,
to do. Like you said, it costs no money to do. You
yeah,
know.
and I mean, if you really look at the timeline of it, it makes total sense. If we agree that Rage Against the Machine is probably the last culturally relevant band, which
Mhm.
I'm sure somebody will tell us that there's somebody else, but there's nobody that big. Like I'm gonna say Rage Against the Machine was the last big one to do it. Maybe Pearl
Mhm.
Jam on some smaller level,
Mhm.
as far as the influence on the culture. I mean, they're a huge
Mhm.
band, obviously,
Sure.
but one of those two bands I would say is it. Well, you know what follows right next to that in the timeline? The launch of MySpace.
Mhm.
And that's when people started being able to voice
Yeah.
their own opinions and
Mhm.
having their own shit out there. And it wasn't crazy, until until Obama took office, but
Mhm.
it certainly was building to where even in the old MySpace days, you started realizing that you didn't agree with everything your friends said. You
Mhm.
know, you know,
Yeah, I know.
and you
Mhm.
weren't out there saying, "Man, I wish Disturbed would sing about that," or "I wish Korn would sing this song," and say,
Mhm.
to express how I feel. You would
Mhm.
just be like, "Fuck you, dude! You're an asshole, and I have more followers than you here on
Yeah.
MySpace, so fuck
Mhm.
off." You know,
Yeah.
that's how it was, and it's a very different time, and it's a it's a time where not only music stars, but any stars, it's a time where celebrity no longer matters.
Mhm.
Celebrity, you got to be the 1/10 of 1% to have to be a celebrity breakout now. For
Mhm.
every set of Kardashians that you get 9 million kids with 10 times the talent that never are heard from again.
Absolutely. Mhm. Yeah.
And that's kind of always, if you really look at it, that's kind of an exact parallel to how the music business has always been. You
Well, the thing
know,
about yeah, well, I mean, the thing about the music business, though, I mean, the whole model of it, was it's always been built though on promoting
Mhm.
new songs.
Sure.
Like for instance, with like the Grammys this year, right? Didn't happen, right?
Okay, I
It,
did. I literally was like, "Is it coming up?"
well, no, they canceled. Well, see, but that's exactly it right there, right? So the Grammys, I mean, back I think it was about 10 years ago, and he put this in the article. 40 million people viewed it in
Mhm.
2012. Okay, last year, 9 million. That's a 75% drop in
Yeah.
viewership. So no one even that's like he talked about in the article, that's like, for football fans not playing the Super Bowl. I mean, people would go crazy if the
Mhm.
Super Bowl wasn't played.
Sure.
No one even knows about the great. No one even cares, or
No one
like
cares.
you just said, you didn't even know if it was going on or not. I mean, that's
Yeah.
and that's the whole thing about it is unlike the past for new music, there's no. I mean, the other thing too, there's no real central sort of media posts. You know what I mean? Like we
Mm-mm.
said, like you mentioned, because of the internet and because of social media, there's not the big hub. There's not the MTV hub here where
Yeah.
everyone goes and goes. Okay, I'm going to go. I want to find some new music, and you can only go to one or two places.
Mhm.
Now it's just because, like you said, it's so fragmented the industry. It's just there's not a centralized hub or post where everyone's going to kind of come together and go to
No.
find or discover new music.
Well,
You know?
and again, it's that weird. Part of that is that merging of the politics that's going on that I know you and Tanner talked about on
Mhm,
Papa's Corner. The merging of the politics into the hubs, I'll say. And
mhm,
it's way more prevalent, I think, in hard rock and metal than it is other
mm.
places for some reason, which is amazing to me that the land of rebellion is so
Oh,
anti-rebellious these days.
I
But
know, man.
that's a whole nother discussion
It
that I
is,
don't want
I
to get
know.
into.
Yeah, I know,
But
yeah.
the point is that, again, it's another place where the bands become irrelevant because
Mhm,
they're the point of whatever malcontent, whatever their reason for malcontent they have, is diminished. The guy that writes the post on Metal Injection is more important than the band he's
mhm,
writing about.
yeah,
His opinion is more important if he's writing something about some postmodern punk band or whatever bullshit that he's writing about,
mhm,
and he's saying, yeah, this band that flaunts the Trump era, blah blah blah.
mhm.
He's more important than the band.
I know.
His thought is
Yeah,
more important than the band, and that does no good for the bands.
no,
You
it
know,
doesn't. Mhm,
that's a big problem. In the old days, when we had a flurry of magazines. Don't get me wrong. We had
mhm,
Rolling Stone, Rip, Hit Parader, Metal Hammer, on and on it went. What
sure.
was the other one?
Metal
The
Maniacs.
Metal Maniacs, Metal Edge,
Mhm,
but even the mainstream ones. You had your mainstream ones. You had your 3 or 4 that you could choose in whatever city you lived in, that you could pick up every whatever day of the week that they
yeah,
delivered it.
mhm,
You had tons of this stuff, but none of it was focused on anything but the band. I owned a magazine, and I can
yeah,
tell you for a
mhm,
fact, the times that it did good were when I did stuff, when I had an interview with Peter Criss. You know,
Mhm.
when I put Kiss on the cover, then all of a sudden the magazine was doing crazy, crazy business. We had a columnist. We had a political columnist in my magazine,
Okay.
and I named the thing, of course, because because I needed something shocking. So and this tell you how old this is, but the name of the column was "Bullets for Tom Dashiell's Head," which was which was
That was that senator guy, right, Daschle?
yeah,
Tom Daschle? Yeah.
yeah, and it was, and what it was bullet points,
Mhm.
and of course we played the whole bullets, and
Mhm.
I
Sure.
draped the page with bullets and stuff. It was a play on it, and anytime we focused on that, no one wanted to hear it.
Mhm.
Nobody wanted to hear it. It would always be the lowest read stuff online. We were brand new online at the time, but it was the lowest read stuff online, and
Mhm.
it was the lowest interactions, and nobody would send in letters to the editor saying that this sucked or this was great or whatever. It
Mhm.
just didn't impact. Well, now that's
Now forget it.
everywhere.
It's
Now
everywhere,
that's
yeah.
everywhere, and it's
Mhm.
like it's just useless clickbait. And I understand why, and to be honest, that's what music as a whole is right now, is just useless clickbait.
Oh, yeah.
It's not it's not considered relevant. It's just considered as a way to generate a small amount of money
Mhm.
to whomever is using it, whether it's a magazine or an online zine, whether it's a record company, small or large, whatever. The music has become the music's
Secondary.
it's
Yeah.
very secondary.
Mhm.
I mean, dude, how many great bands do we know that can't get fucking Dick going? Just
Mhm.
can't get Dick going, and then,
Well, it
they're
takes years. It takes like 13 years and
yeah,
you're still considered a new band, after it takes you like
mhm,
10 plus years to really
yeah,
get going. You got
yeah,
it's insane, I mean, like, and a good point. Yeah, I mean, it's almost better to get your music now put on into a video game
yeah, of
that
course,
then they get signed to a record deal because no one's going to
right,
hear your music on a record deal.
right,
Video games,
and
you will. Yeah.
and so then what ends up happening is bands break up because they don't have, they just can't make a living, or they
Mhm.
try to do something stupid, like the chick that pissed on the guy's face.
Mhm.
They try to do something radical and shocking, and while that worked for that girl for 5 minutes, have you heard about her since?
Yeah. Exactly. No. Of
Yeah,
course
it's
not.
gone.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
gone because we're in that generation now.
Yeah.
Okay, it's this is sort of a parallel, but
Mhm.
my buddy John hit me up the other day, and we were just shooting the shit about movies, and he said, "Is it weird that I'm excited about the Jackass movie?" He's like
Mhm.
excited that the new Jackass movie was coming out.
Mhm.
And my answer to him was, it's kind of weird to me because I've watched 1,000 hours of Fail Army.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Well, what's Fail Army?" And then I showed it to him. He's like, "Oh." He didn't even realize that there's like literally a whole community of Jackass
Uh-huh.
that's on
Mhm.
demand,
Mhm.
but the kids know this. The
Mhm.
kids, I guarantee you, if we could find some breakdown of the Jackass movie after this weekend, it's going to be lowly attended by young people. It's all going to
Mhm.
be 50-year-old people that
Oh,
go
of course it is. Yeah, people that
because,
grew up in that generation with
yeah,
Jackass being all over
well,
MTV and so forth. Yeah.
well,
Mhm.
well, they're going to see Steve-O and they're going to see Johnny Knoxville.
Exactly.
They're not going to see them blow up a fucking porta potty or whatever.
Mhm.
And the kids today, they already have that. They have, like I said, the Fail Army, and I'm sure there's 50 other sites like Fail Army that
Mhm.
do the exact same thing, just little clips, 2, 3, 4 minutes of it, but there's 10 million clips.
Mhm.
The generational value has changed, and
Yeah.
music as a generational value has changed. And
Mhm.
and that's a big reason that the old music is still popular, because old people don't change.
Yeah,
It's
that's a good point. Mhm.
can't
Yeah.
can't teach an old dog new tricks.
New
Well, no
tricks,
shit.
yeah.
That's why Deep Purple's getting more plays than Plush.
Well, I think that's also one of the reasons, obviously with this whole thing going on with the Spotify and Neil Young and Joe Rogan thing,
Hmm. Yeah.
where, at first I just, I thought to myself, like, who Neil Young, I mean, listen, obviously he's a huge artist, but in my head I was like, well, most people who listen to Neil Young or who are
Mhm.
fans of him, they've already got his records. It's a lot of
Yeah,
people, and like I said, the baby boomer generation. Um, but because old music is 70% of the industry is old music. I mean, that's actually it could be a big deal when you start having if it starts to snowball a little bit, where a lot of these older artists are taking their music off of Spotify because I mean, think about it. These record company, these labels now, and not even
mhm.
just labels, investment firms. All
Yeah,
right, they get into these major bidding wars to buy the publishing catalogs from all these aging rock and pop stars that are in their 70s, 80s, or dead.
sure.
Because
Mhm.
that is where the revenue is coming from. The revenue is not coming from new music; it's coming from the old music.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons also that in the article that Joya talks about why he believes that it's not going to go back anytime soon to where it once was in terms of new music. I mean, like I said, the song catalogs are most demanded are by these old musicians.
Sure. Well,
And now you mentioned before even vinyl, right?
mhm.
Vinyl is still the number one, format. Once again, an old format.
Sure.
That's the number one leading format for listening to music still.
Yeah, well, it's
You know?
because you can't download vinyl.
Yeah, exactly.
It's as simple as
It
that. You
has
can't
value. It
down
has value.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, dude, it's not as popular because let's face it, it was a shit medium, but cassettes are coming back.
I know that's insane. That really is
People are
boggles my mind.
people are buying cassettes. That's,
Mhm.
my friend Tommy, he's in that Leviathan project with
Yeah.
Ripper Owens.
Ripper. Yeah.
You know, uh, they were selling cassettes. They sold cassettes before
I
they
know, dude.
sold MP3s.
That's insane. I see that some bands saying that they sold out their cassettes, and I'm just like, "Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? Cassettes? I don't. I don't. Who's? I mean, I don't know.
I don't
That's
even have a
crazy.
player anymore, but
I don't. I know.
you know, but yeah, I mean, dude, but again, this goes to kind of it's the unwritten thing that's not in this article, but is a truism. The industry as a whole is playing to old people.
Yes, exactly. Well,
It's
that's it. Hmm.
it's not playing to the kids.
Yep.
Back in the day, in our day, they played to us.
Yeah.
There's a reason that hair metal took off the way it did. It was all image. I mean, 80% of the bands in the hair metal era sucked. I'll
Hmm.
say it. I don't give a shit what Eddie Vedder said. I know you probably saw that article today about Eddie Vedder's shitting on
Yeah.
hair
Hmm.
metal and
Hair
Nikki
metal.
Sixx fighting
Yep.
back. Well, Nikki's a fool. Nikki's a fool if he doesn't think that 80% of the bands were shit. They were.
They were. They were.
They were,
Hmm.
and I'm not even saying his band, although I don't personally think his band was great. I mean, it was listenable, and certainly everybody knows 10 Motley Crue songs, so you can't really say they sucked.
Hmm.
But you know, the Kick Tracys of the world, nice guys, not great music.
Not great
You know,
musician.
you,
Mhm.
you know,
I know
and
what you
there's
mean. Yeah.
and there's 100 of those bands.
Hmm.
I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those bands that were all image and not as much substance, and yet
Hmm.
they still found a way to make it into the lexicon and are still in the lexicon.
Hmm.
I mean, dude, how many of these bands do you see showing up at M3? Look, it's the reunion of
Oh, I know.
Bang
Yeah.
Tango. It's like,
Yeah. I know.
really?
Hmm.
Really? Was there a need for a reunion of Bang Tango? Well, yes, there was, because somebody's out there buying it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hmm. Exactly.
That's the saddest of the saddest thing. You take the worst band of that era. For me, I'll say Pretty Boy Floyd.
Yeah, they were terrible. Yeah.
Pretty Boy Floyd could do more business than
I know a new band right now. Yeah, I
a
know.
new band than a
Mhm.
Sanhedrin.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And
Exactly.
that blows.
It
That's
sucks. It's
ridiculous.
ridiculous. Well, the thing too is, I mean, labels they don't spend money anymore too on research and development to sort of revitalize their business. Yeah, every
No, they don't
industry
even
out
have
there.
it.
Well,
They
that's
don't
what I'm
even
saying. Well,
have that anymore.
well,
They
that's what
don't
I'm
have
saying
AR
is, well,
departments.
that's what I mean. There's no artist development. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
you're not. And once again, that was the big thing. These bands would get signed to these deals. You get 2 or 3 records to prove yourself and
Mhm.
to develop. And now you don't get that. You have to do it on your own. If they're going to sign you, you already have to have been successful if you're going to get signed,
Yeah.
or you have to have the right management company and so forth that has the right connections. Um, but yeah, they don't do that because I mean, one of the reasons, and that's in the article too, that he says that this is happening is when a new song now does become a hit. Okay,
Mhm.
labels don't want to really do this much because they're risking copyright lawsuits that are just
Yeah.
exponentially going through the roof. It's why they're shying away from putting out new music because of the over reliance of lawyers and litigation.
Hmm.
It's not helping anybody but the law firms that are representing these people.
Sure.
All it's doing is putting holes in everyone's pocket. So like like when a major corporation, for instance, when they settle in a lawsuit, I mean nobody wants to go through that whole process.
No.
So it's sort of easier, I think, for labels to go, you know what, let's just repackage, or if you could, either do covers of songs, or just put out this garbage that they're putting out,
Well,
because
yeah.
it is once these songs become commercial hits. Yeah, you're gonna have all these copyright lawsuits coming out left and right trying to say that you ripped them off and stuff. And if you listen to a lot of these, I mean, pops, I don't know which song it is, who
Hmm.
sings it exactly, but there's a song out there that it's like a mixture. I mean, it's a totally complete bite off of two songs from the '80s. One's In Excess, Need You Tonight, and that pop song. I was like that. I forget the name of the lady, but that Two of Hearts. You know what
Oh,
I'm talking about? That pop
yeah, yeah.
song, like Tina something or whatever.
Tina Marie.
Tina Marie. So if you listen, I forget who sings it. It's one of those newer, like younger female artists, like Olivia Rodrigo or something. And
Okay.
it's basically like those two songs. I
Hmm.
mean, it's complete ripoff of both of those songs. When I hear that song,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's two of those songs put in there. So a lot of these labels, yeah, they're risking, getting into these lawsuits. And I think to them, it's just easier. It's more, economically
Yeah.
efficient to not get involved with it and just go, you know what, we're going to, like you said, we're going to cater and play to the older. The thing
Hmm.
too is, let's be honest, who's spending money on music? Our generation above, not
Yeah.
not
Not
not the younger
kids.
generations. They're
Yeah,
not
because
spending.
we didn't teach our kids to put any value on
Well,
music.
that's it too. Exactly. Good point.
So
Yep.
I blame
Yeah.
us. I don't blame the kids.
Oh
I
yeah.
blame us on that. But
Yeah.
and dude, another thing that I think is really, really a big part of this whole old music resurgence, and I've been noticing it a ton
Mhm.
on, especially I use YouTube Music as my player.
Okay.
And I don't know if Apple does this as well or not, but these guys all get paid for streams,
Mhm.
and to where now streams are more important than actually selling a record
Oh,
to
yeah.
the
Mhm.
record companies, not
Yeah.
to the bands, but to the record companies. So now, and I've noticed this over and over and over and over again lately, these the bands, when you go to a band's page where all their albums are listed,
Mhm.
now you see all of these albums that are not really albums. They're called, like Def Leppard is one. Def
Mhm.
Leppard is definitely one, and I'll try and pull it up while I'm talking here, and I'll put it on the screen so you can see it.
Okay.
Um, what they do is they get some $2 fucking art graphic guy to make a small little graphic. Again, they
Mhm.
don't need full artwork, and they come up with some sort of a theme,
Okay.
and the theme becomes an album itself, which generates more plays because they just take the old songs and repackage it a different way. Like, look, I'll put it right on the screen here, and
Okay.
you might not even be aware of this, but I started seeing this, and I was stunned by this stuff. So look at all these records here. This is Def Leppard's page
Yeah.
on YouTube Music.
Okay.
Now, this is a real record, although even it's repackaged. X, Yeah, and Songs from Sparkle. That's 3 albums that actually exist. But look at this, Leopard on the Loose. That's not a real album.
No, it's not. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, let's see what's on it. 5 songs that are already out.
Wow, interesting. Yeah,
Work It Out, It's Only Love, All I
well,
Want Is Everything in Heaven Is.
yeah,
You
no, I do see that on Spotify. Obviously, yeah, they've got these playlists like right down there. There's one which
Yeah,
says the Viv years.
the
I guess
Viv years.
The Vivian Campbell years. So they
Yeah,
have all the songs. Yeah, it's playlists within.
yeah,
Yeah, because you're right.
yeah.
Because people don't want to hear the whole album. They might just want to hear certain
Mhm.
hits from those albums. And you're right. It's better to then put
Yeah.
that in a playlist. Well, and that's
Well,
creative, and I think that's
eh
wise. It's a good
it makes
move.
sense, but
Yeah.
it does no help at all for a
No,
new
for new
band that
music.
doesn't have a catalog.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yep.
You
Mhm.
know, it's like even us oldsters. Look, I'm not a huge Def Leppard fan. I think they're okay, but when I stumbled across this, my first thought was, "Hey, what is this?"
Mhm.
why don't I have the 2 arm years? What's on
Mhm.
that? And I clicked in and I started looking at it. I was like, oh, well, I know these songs, but I don't know like this live song or whatever. So I'll click that and play it. Well, you know, so I'll play like this is a live track of Wasted from 79.
Okay, yeah,
I hadn't heard it before. I
sure.
played it, but like everybody else, I started doing something else. And all 5 songs played and they got credit for 5 streams
There
from
you
me,
go. Mhm.
and
Yeah,
that's how they get their money.
that's to get that money. Yep. Mhm. Yeah.
But this is a rampant thing. I just picked Def Leppard because I knew they had a bunch of, I mean, they have,
Mhm.
if I pull up all their albums, look at how many albums Def Leppard now has. This was never released. This was never released. This
Yeah.
was never released. These 2 were never released. None of this
You're right. Yeah, look at all those.
was
Wow,
really,
interesting.
I mean, even this take this out because it's just a reissue with all 3 albums together.
Mhm.
The first 10 are the first 9 are not real
Not
albums.
albums. Yeah, they're just playlists. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
last real album is 10 albums down from a real album that
From
you
real
could
album.
have
Yeah.
bought in a store. And
Interesting.
it's from 8 years ago.
Yeah. No,
That's
you're
not
right there.
promoted. So why why does Def Leppard need to even put out new music?
Well, I mean, when you think about Def Leppard, yeah, people are they're gonna want to hear the hits. I mean, when
Yeah.
I think of Def Leppard and I want to listen to it, yeah, I want to hear the hits off of Pyromania
Yeah.
and before it.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it makes sense to have these playlists because then you don't
Yeah.
have to go and just listen to 2 songs off the album. Okay, go to the other album and listen to those 3 songs you want to hear and so forth.
Mhm.
It's just right there on a list for you. And then, like you said,
Yeah.
it's just a different format, a different way of listening now to music. It's not
Sure.
sitting down and listening to those filler songs on those
Mhm.
albums. Nobody
Yeah.
wants that, so they're just they're cutting all that out. Well,
Right.
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, and it's comfortable. It feels new because you don't know what this is, but it's comfortable
Mm-hmm.
because within a minute you sort of realize that it is something you do know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an advantage. It's an advantage that the new bands don't have. Why am I going to listen to something new that I have no idea what it is for an hour when I can plump this in and I can hear maybe 1 or 2 new songs, but at the same time 3 very familiar songs, and I got my fix.
Yeah. No,
And
you're right.
I don't need to find anything new.
Mm-hmm.
Now that time that I would have given to the new band is gone.
Yeah. Well, I know you're right, and well, that's the thing. It's the algorithms, right?
Mhm.
A lot of these algorithms they're designed to be, feedback loops.
Mhm.
To basically ensure that the promoted, that the promoted new songs are basically identical to what your favorite old songs are.
Yeah. Sure.
So when you listen to a new song, then it automatically feeds you some other songs that are old songs. So it's not like a lot of times these, I don't, whatever service you use, streaming service, like you said, if I listen to say the new Def Leppard song,
Mhm.
it's gonna after hearing that song, it's gonna start now playing some old Motley Crue or something right
Yeah.
after it.
Yeah, you're going to
You
get
know,
Crazy Train over and
Exactly,
over again.
exactly. We're not getting new music from other new bands. It's almost
Right.
designed that way.
Mhm.
And like you said, I think that's a great point you put up because it's comfortable. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's true. I mean, if I'm sitting here and if I want to hear a song and all of a sudden it starts feeding, the songs after that, if it's songs I do know, oh yeah, cool, definitely, Motley Crue, whatever comes on, I'm probably going to leave it on. I'm not going to
Yeah.
shut it off. And like you said, by doing that, it's generating that money instead of a new song coming on going, I hear the first 20 seconds, I'm not really feeling it, I'm going to shut it off.
Yeah. Mhm.
It
Well,
keeps
dude,
you on. It's designed to keep you on there and to not switch, change the
yeah.
playlist or channel. Yeah.
It's the digital equivalent to classic rock radio.
Mhm.
Classic rock radio, let's face it, we all can name the set list before it even starts. We all know that it's going to be a Pink Floyd song, followed by a Van Halen song, followed by 2 Who songs, followed by,
Mhm.
maybe a Pearl Jam song sneaks in there as the new old song.
Mhm.
And, but that's how classic rock radio has worked forever.
Sure.
And I don't know what Howard Stern was on where you are, but here it was the classic rock station. And Howard
Mhm.
Stern would end at 11 o'clock and we'd keep listening until 5.
Mhm.
Well, now they get paid. Now
Yeah.
they make their money hoping that, look, you can listen. Me and you get fed 100 new albums a week.
Mhm.
And if we listen to it on Spotify or on YouTube or on whatever, and we're doing something else. We're also, working on something or writing something or doing whatever we're doing. It doesn't stop when the album stops. It starts playing something else that it thinks you want to hear. And that's there's a reason you hear certain artists the same way, and it's because they're bought and paid for.
Yeah.
There's a reason that, me as a classic metal guy, I hear Ozzy to where I fucking can't stand Ozzy anymore.
Yep, exactly.
But it's probably partly my own fault because I don't turn it off either.
You don't turn it off. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I just am like, it's 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The hassle of going and finding something else I want to hear will take longer than the 3 minutes to hear.
Just listen to it. Yeah.
To hear Flying High Again or whatever. So I just let it play to get to the next one. And then by golly, the next one ends up being, I don't know, ZZ Top Tush, something else that's just but then you wait that one out. And next thing you know, you're down the rabbit hole of every hit from George Thorogood to ZZ Top to everybody in the 80s.
No, absolutely. No, you're spot on with that. And it's it's
but
just,
but you know what you never get in that mix? Not one goddamn new song.
No, well, that's what it is. And that's the whole thing. The way the algorithms are, they're not going to feed you new music. It's just not. And like you said, because it's people, like you said, people are more willing to let a song they already know play and wait for the next one instead of going, that's a new song. I don't know this song. I'm going to go ahead and change it and put on something else. People are lazy, too. It's lazy.
It's true. But like what you were saying before, the industry which runs all this shit, which if Warner Media wanted to push a Warner new artist, it would be played. It would be in these algorithms. It would be mixed in somehow. They don't want it either. They don't want it. Just like you were saying, for all the reasons that you were saying, they don't want it because there's no reason if you're listening to Def Leppard as an example, there's no reason that you couldn't throw a Hailstorm song in there and be way off the mark. You would, I mean, Hailstorm's music's not way that off
much
the
different
mark from Def Leppard.
Of course not. No,
but you'll never hear it. If you press play on some Def Leppard song and just let the playlist go for hours, you're never going to get fed a Hailstorm song. You're never going to get fed a Dirty Honey song. You're never going to get you're never going to get Rival Sons. You're only going to get Old and Older. You'll get an Eagles song before you'll get a Hailstorm song.
No, you're right. And and that's the thing. One of the last thing I'll point out in this article that he says, Ted Gioia, is that and it's something that we've talked about. The problem isn't a lack of good new music, and I'm glad he put that in there. He says he gets, he listens to at least I think 20 new songs a day, and this is, like I said, and he's a jazz guy, but he was saying it's not the lack of talent. He's like the talent's still there. There's still great music coming out. We talk about this all the time. There's such great bands still out there, but it's really just an institutional failure to discover and, more importantly, to nurture it. I mean, the music industry, what they're really doing is they're defending their old ways of doing business rather than building new ones. And the old way doesn't work. I mean,
the old way's dead.
It's dead. And they always say, I mean, the safest, they're taking the safest path. To them, and that's why artists are, are not getting paid anymore, is because the industry's crumbling. It's been crumbling for the last couple of decades. They're not worried about fixing the model. They're just worried, okay, we're going to keep the same model because it's safe. As long as they're getting their revenue, that's all that matters. They're not worried about taking care of the artists anymore.
Right.
Not that they ever did, but there was a point in time, I think, that they did do that. They knew by nurturing artists, by developing them and giving them time and letting them have 3 records to develop, they were nurturing the artists. They're not doing it anymore, and they're taking the safe path. And as they always say, the safest path is usually the most dangerous. If you avoid all risk, you might do okay in the short term, but long term, it's a done deal. It ain't going to happen.
Dude, I'll take the argument one step even further. I think today's artists are far more talented than the artists from the 70s, 80s, or 90s.
Okay.
And I'll tell you exactly why I think this.
Okay.
Because all those artists had time. All of them. Dude, one of the biggest bands in the history of the world, whether you like them or you hate them, is Journey. No
Sure.
denying that they're
Oh, yeah.
one of the biggest bands, sold 150 million records or
Probably still
whatever it
bigger
is.
now than ever. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. Yeah.
And they had 4 albums at least that didn't sell dick.
Sure.
You know, all those pre-Steve Perry albums, not the ones that were instrumental and stuff, those albums didn't sell anything, like Of a Lifetime and just Journey and stuff like that. They didn't sell at
Mhm.
all. A band like Journey would have been dead and gone today. They would have never made
Mhm.
it to Finding Steve Perry.
No, you're right. Yeah.
These bands today have no support, none.
No, no, none. Absolutely none.
If they don't hit immediately, I mean immediately, they're going to be
Mhm.
on some bullshit label, you know, or less, or doing it themselves,
Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that
Mhm.
that's necessarily bad. What I'm saying is they don't. In the old days, you formed a band, you tried to find a small label, and then you tried to,
Yep.
you know, and then you tried to piggyback that to the big label. That's what
Mhm.
every major band did, whether it was Metallica or
Absolutely. Mhm.
U2 or any of these bands. They all started on something tired, Poison, any one of these bands in the 80s, you
Mhm.
know, before the hair metal thing became huge. The originals of it, you know, were on some nothing label. You know, Johnny Z just died this week. You
Mhm.
know, Megaforce Records, how many of those bands piggybacked Megaforce Records to Elektra, Atlantic, Warner Brothers,
Sure.
Capitol? You know, they all had a resource to
Yep.
help them. They all
Mhm.
had a small guy that led them to the big guy.
Mhm.
That's gone. There's no that's
Yeah.
you either get discovered on American Idol and they put all the money into you,
Mhm.
or you miraculously have a breakout song, or you're dead,
Yeah.
or
No.
you're dead in the water. And
Mhm.
that's why I'm saying these guys today have so much more. To me, they have so much more talent because there's so much great music being made, and these guys are on do or die from day one.
Yeah. Mhm. No, that's a good
That's
point.
that's
Yeah.
incredible skill, man.
No, it is, and that's the thing is, and he does point out in the article that this is something that's also been consistent throughout music history, especially with when rock and roll was discovered in the 50s, and even I guess even with hip hop in the 80s and 90s, the CEOs of these labels, man, they really, they have no clue what's going on. Like for instance,
Yeah.
in the 50s with rock and roll, when that exploded, there was gaps, like a 10-year period or so forth where there was nothing new going on in music, with the labels
Mhm.
until rock came and just took it over, and all these CEOs just climbed onto it. Same with hip hop, right? That was another
Yeah.
one that did the same thing. And like you just put up a great point, musical trends, it always comes from the bottom up. It's not from the top down. These CEOs of these, major labels, they're the last to know what's going on. That's why, like you mentioned, that's why it is the indie labels like the Sub Pops and like the Mega Forces. They're the ones that trigger the musical movements. Was
Yeah.
those labels? Those, like you said, they had that support and sort of that stepping stone that they could, be on until they were able to do something bigger, and until CEOs of these companies and these back in the day, the A&R, representatives found out about them,
Yeah.
and so that they were creating this huge buzz, and of course they couldn't ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're
Mhm.
never the ones, and the major labels are never the ones that ever discovered or nurtured artists. And as you mentioned, it was those independent labels, those Mega Forces and Sub Pops and so forth, that really created these movements that we
Yeah.
grew up with and wound up loving. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's gone now. I mean, it's
It's gone.
completely
It's gone.
gone now. And man, if you're signed to bullshit records first, they don't even want to touch you.
Mhm.
They don't want to touch you.
True.
They want to
Yeah.
if anything, you
Repackage.
can have incredible talent, but they want to repackage you.
Mhm.
You know, and that's no good either, because part of
Not.
what they heard you for was the magic that you as a collective unit created.
Yeah.
You know, dude, I
Yeah.
have so much respect for a band like Dirty Honey.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys
Mhm.
did it and are still doing it with no
Old-fashioned way.
label.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah.
not even the old-fashioned way. They're doing it with no label, no help, just a good PR team and a killer manager.
Well,
And
and I think that's all it takes these days, and look at, Plush is another one, as we mentioned.
yeah,
Another band
mhm,
that just came out of nowhere. Within a year, they're opening up for these major bands.
yeah,
Same thing, though. They got with the right producer and manager with Johnny K,
sure,
and he kinda took them under his wing, and
yeah,
that's what it is. It's not, you're right. It's not the labels anymore. that are going to help you out and discover you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it's agents. It's
But you know what though, with Plush, I'm gonna jump in on that for a minute.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Because with Plush, Mariah Formica was on The Voice, and it was kind of a controversy that she got booted off The Voice. And then the other girl, Brooke Colucci, the drummer, is a YouTuber.
I didn't know that.
Is a monster YouTuber. If you go and look her up, if you look up Brooke C on YouTube and watch her drum videos, every one of them has 500,000 plays.
Wow, I didn't know.
I mean, she's or more.
She's
Some of them have millions of plays, and she's just a drummer, know, and she's doing like drum through videos of like Tool songs and stuff, which is cool. But I mean, Plush is very much the modern era. Plush is what you get. You get some exposure somewhere, you become a YouTuber, and then you find it, they're actually going backwards in a weird way. They took the modern day success and they've gone back to actually putting 4 girls playing instruments and going out on the road and slugging it out.
No, it's a good point. Yeah, exactly.
And again, they're doing it the right way. I mean, obviously whoever their manager is, and I don't know the answer to that, but whoever their manager is deserves half of their money. Because
phenomenal.
You don't just end up on the tours that they've. I mean, Evanescence, Hailstorm, Daughtry, Slash,
Wolfie,
Van Halen. You know, it's like that's their first year as a band.
That's crazy. No, it is. It's crazy. It is. It's just crazy.
But no, dude. I mean, by and large, though, the most bands aren't getting that love. There's so many. You and I were talking yesterday on the phone about our friend Reed Alton and his 2 bands, Osiren and what's his other band called?
Invertigo.
Great bands.
Yeah, I agree.
Bands that if this was 1995,
they'd be signed.
They would have been signed, and they would have been on tour already for 2 or 3 years, and they would be writing the 3rd record that is the do or die breakout record. Instead, they're dicking around playing clubs in Canada, hoping to get
some festival or whatever.
The festival or the reunion show with Triumph or whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous the way the industry just doesn't want to see new music. And I get it, I understand it, but it's all about the now without any forward thinking. Because eventually it's going to collapse. It
already is. I mean, it already is collapsing.
But eventually we're going to age out.
Well,
eventually we're aging out, and then what?
Well, then that's the thing we've mentioned a lot of times, right? Not just we're aging out; it's our musical heroes are aging out, and there's nobody replacing them. But in a way, I'm okay with that, because I think what that's going to do, and what it is doing, is now putting more of an emphasis once again on, going to these local shows in your local city where there's 3-4 metal bands playing together, and building up. I mean, no, seriously. I mean,
I agree with you, but the thing I don't see though is what's going to happen when all these 20-year-olds turn 40. They're not going to have the catalog that we do. The article's talking about how old music is powering the business. That 20 years from now, what the music that'll be considered old doesn't have any audience built to it.
Well, I know you're right.
Do you think that those 40-year-old kids that are 20 years old now are still going to be looking to Def Leppard or Neil Young? I don't think
they're not. But they're going to look somewhere. You know what I mean? They're going to look for something. I mean, I think, listen, and like we because we keep saying, right, there's great new music out there, so there are people playing it, there are people listening to it. I think it's just going to come from sort of, and I hate using this word, but like an organic place, where it's got to really just come from the way it originally did, because like we were saying, the mega forces and those labels, they were powering those, the Orange County scene with Metallica, the New Jersey and New York scene with Anthrax. They were, something like that's got to happen again, but once.
See, I have a totally different take than you do.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, that's good.
I actually think that music as a commercial entity will be dead, will be completely dead in under 20 years. I think the lack of anything new coming is going to be the death knell to it. It's going to just become soundtrack guys. It's going to be guys working for the WWE making intro music. It's going to be, 30-second clips in a movie. It's because it's going to follow wherever the money is. And the money is going to drain out of this when there's not old bands to keep it alive.
Well, I think because but here's the thing. I think the reason why it's going that way is because everybody is still relying on the old model. You know what I mean? Everyone's still relying on the old model, and you can't rely on the old model. I mean, there's going to be a time where there's going to be enough money bleeding from the industry where they're going to have to get their shit together, and they're going to have
30 years. It's been 30 years.
But you got to understand who's powering the industry. It's these dinosaur guys, and they're like I said, they about them too is they don't believe. I mean, look at a lot of the big CEOs of these record labels. These guys are all guys in their 60s and 70s. Okay, they all grew up in that baby boomer generation, the Woodstock generation, as you call it, right? Well, they just don't believe. To them, I think when they die out, okay, you're going to have people our age and younger who are going to take over, right? They're going to believe in it. The thing is, the Woodstock generation believes only in their generation when it comes to music. It's the reason why they're buying out these catalogs for millions of dollars too. Is they thought their music was changing the world and all that stuff. Like you said, that was the way it was back then. There was no social media, so a lot of this shit came through the music and the culture. Right. They don't believe in it anymore. I think because of a lot of it is because we've got the internet and the social media and everything, but they don't believe in these bands. They don't believe in new music anymore. They still think Neil Young is as relevant today as he was in the 60s.
Right.
It is. I mean, they do because they think the generation is the best thing ever, and they think everything else afterwards is all blah. I mean, I hear it from my own dad all the time. He thinks like, they changed the world. It's like, be a freaking break. You didn't change the damn world. But
you know what, dude? Think about your own friend set. Not me and you me and you are the anomalies. Our own friends that are our age, they don't want to hear nothing new.
No, but most people
they're
don't.
They're in that same boat. And that's that, to me is the problem is there's not going to be any bands of any substance to be the next generation's classic rock or classic music to lure people to it.
Well, I think eventually it's going to have to be, man. When the industry, I mean, what are they going to do? Are they just going to basically, eat its own tail, in the end? And now you think so? I think eventually they got to have no choice. They're going to see that revenue's plummeting. No one wants to hear, just old music anymore. And there's going to be, I think, I guess, like I said in the article, it said this has gone on before. This has happened before in the music industry back in the 30s and the 50s. And I think it's just been long overdue. I think rock just basically was able to power the industry for so long. Yeah, it doesn't anymore. Rock music is not relevant like it once was. Obviously, hip hop now is the number one selling music musical genre. So, but I think anything. I just believe things go. Always come back and go in circles. And I think you're going to see once these musicians die out, once the Metallicas and everyone retire, and they can't play live anymore. They're going to have to find a way of generating some income from live music, and the only way to do that is with the younger bands, and it's going to, I think, power hopefully a new generation of maybe the industry is going to have to finally going to have to change their model. That's the thing. They after all these years, just amazes me that they still are in the same business model they've been in forever. They're just lazy and they just don't want to change it. And that's what's killing it. But eventually, when these, like I said, I think when these baby boomers die out and they're out of the industry, and you got younger guys coming up and taking over, they're gonna bring some fresh, hopefully new ideas to the table. And I'm crossing my fingers. I mean,
dude, I hope you're right, because it's sad to watch something that we've cared so much about die. But to me, this is literally watching a grandparent fucking get eaten away by cancer.
Slowly, I know, just dying a slow death. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But unfortunately, it not only does it feel like you're watching that, but it also feels like you're buying them their cigarettes to keep doing it. Because, I mean, literally, this is not news that the industry is fucked.
No,
and
yeah,
and and yet here we are still talking about it, and
I
nobody's
know,
making any changes
I know.
to
It's crazy.
fix it. Nobody's doing anything to, you know, they can't even decide on how to distribute music anymore.
I know.
They can't
Mhm,
even make that decision. They can't come up
mhm.
with it. The technological age is so different and so vast. There's so many opportunities that none of them. Why can't there be an audio form of an NFT that you
Mhm.
only sell to 30,000 people for $100 a pop from a band?
Yeah.
And it's really rare and focused to a band, and it really
Mm.
regenerates interest because it's the digital equivalent of a collectible vinyl.
Mhm.
But who's doing that? Nobody. I just
Yeah.
thought of that off the top of my head this minute.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not and I'm not some record company genius. I'm just some dick.
Yeah.
It's like, what the
Well,
hell?
they can use someone like you in the industry. That's the freaking point. You know what I mean? Someone with some forward thinking,
Well,
not the getting stuck in the mud. And I mean, it just amazes me how it just
yeah.
these so-called business people are just
Oh, I know.
continuing with the same model. But once again, because it's going to eventually affect their own pie. Like right now, they can do it
Mhm.
because they're still making their revenue. And like I said,
Yeah.
yes, it's diluting everything because the bands are it, and then they can't last and they
Yeah.
can't make a living doing this. So they don't have the time to put into developing themselves as artists. But
Yeah.
I just think eventually it has to change.
Hey,
They have no choice. They're not, or
well,
the whole industry will be dead.
again,
Absolutely dead.
I hope you're right, man. And
Glass half full.
I
That's what
s-
I'm looking at.
I see stuff like this, or even more to the point, I see what really makes me think that it just ain't gonna happen is when I see the industry celebrating things like vinyl.
Mhm.
When I see an industry saying this would be like if Verizon put out a thing and said, you know what, we sold more rotary phones this year than in the last 10 years. That is not a victory.
Yeah.
That is
No,
an
it's not.
embarrassment.
No, you're right. It's not a victory. I agree.
And
Mhm.
people should absolutely not fans. I mean, fans want collectible shit. That's why they're
Mhm.
buying vinyl. But the industry as a whole should be looking at this and going, this is bullshit.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be selling vinyl at all. We should be selling thumb drives. We should be selling, I don't know. I don't know what, but
Mhm.
some sort of streaming something that's only available to if you buy this special coin or whatever.
Mhm.
Some kind of medium other than putting more money into old
Waves.
bullshit
Yeah. Mhm.
ways of doing things.
True. Yeah.
And we've been watching it deteriorate. I mean, how long have we had MP3s now? 25
Yeah.
years?
Mhm.
And no one's done anything except whine about it.
No, you're right, but I think what it is though is because a lot of these heads at these or at these labels and so forth and in the industry, they're so
Mm,
technologically
I don't
inept.
buy that. I don't buy
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah,
do, man. I
I
think they just don't want to listen, and
I
that's why I'm saying there are going to be if you get some some of these younger cats in there that understand how the listening behaviors of music listeners and what they in terms of technology and where they're listening and what it is that really grabs them.
Mhm.
you know I think they're the ones that are going to hopefully be able to adjust it, the industry to a place where it can. I'm not saying it's I don't think I agree with you in the point that I don't think it's ever going to get back to the way it once
Yeah.
was. No, I agree. No, there's no
Well,
way they're going to recreate that, I think, but at least can get to a place where new music can become relevant again, and that there's it at least can generate a whole new generation of music, hard rock, metal fans, whatever, without it having just getting everything just stuck into listening to old music. Now, here's another thing which is interesting. I never just really quickly because we're
yeah, go
over an
ahead.
hour now,
Yeah,
but
I don't care.
the
I'm
one thing
in.
that does scare me that I used to be actually for that I'm starting to be
Mhm.
not really for it anymore is the hologram stuff because I think that's what they might start doing next
Yeah.
is going back and because they just want to continue to repackage now these dead artists and have them play live on a hologram. And then
They
there's
don't even need to put them to play live, dude. They'll put them in your fucking Oculus.
yeah, that too, of course. But I mean, in terms of if you want to go see live music, you're going to have these holograms now. You're going to have musicians up there playing the music. I'm not saying, it could be any just hired musicians playing the stuff. And then you've got Dio up there on this hologram, and you're going to see this nonstop because it's what they don't have to develop artists still. They can still be playing dead people's shit.
I don't think the kids. You've raised 14 points that I'm going to address here real quick.
Go ahead.
Number one, with the as far as going back, well, I'll start with the hologram, then I'll go back.
Okay.
With the hologram, kids today, they don't really want to go to shows. They want to sit in their house. They want to play with their fucking goggles. They want to do it on their Xbox. A kid today would be much more likely to watch an Oculus Pantera show than they would be to go and see Philip Anselmo, Rex Brown, and the ghosts or the holograms of Vince and Dimebag.
Mm-hmm.
They would rather watch it right in their house, and they'll put any amount of money, just like they do into their game systems, into a really quality Oculus or whatever VR setup they can have. I am 1,000% convinced that that's the direction it's going to go.
I can see that.
To making everything visual and making it everything at home, everything where you can have the concert. You don't even have to leave your house.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I could see that. That is one direction. Secondly, to go backwards to your point about that the labels don't have tech guys, the labels do have tech guys. The labels know that the bands are too stupid or lazy to actually protect their music. And that's why they don't do it. That's why they don't change it. That's why they know that they have these artists on the hook and they don't have to pay them. The new artists aren't going to sign those deals. All these guys that have all the hits have signed all these dumb deals. And even these deals that they're making, they sound like they're these incredible deals, these $150, $250 million deals. Yeah, I get it. If you've had 45 years of success, that may seem like a big deal, but it's a drop in the bucket. I promise you that Blackstone is not making these deals, or BlackRock, or whatever that company is called. I promise you they're not making these deals on a break-even budget. They're making those deals 1,000% because they know that they can make 20 times more than that by cutting this shit up, putting it in every commercial, putting it into a hologram or a VR set that's already being planned in the future. Every other kind of thing, taking the vocal and writing new songs. That's a whole nother thing that you're going to start having. You're going to have a new Neil Young album after he's dead, because they have every sound the guy's ever made. They own it, and they can repackage it and remorph it any way they want to.
Yeah. No.
And these tech guys, think these tech guys can't do that?
Well, no, I'm not saying they don't have tech guys. I know they have tech guys, but what I'm saying is they don't understand the CEOs. They don't understand just technology in general. Now they have the guys, of course, working for them in their ears, telling them, giving them information on it. My thing is just they don't. Just like you said, they're just as lazy as artists are protecting their music.
See, I just think R&D costs money that they don't have to spend right now, and they're literally just going toward their own finish
once
line.
Again,
they don't care about the industry.
Well, they don't care the industry. They said they're not looking themselves to discover new music themselves. And like I said, they don't believe in it. They're not engaged in it. So yes, it makes sense for them just to stick to what they know best, as long as it's still bringing them, the revenue that they're forecasting that they want to bring in.
Right.
Then they'll do it. You know what I
mean? And the artists are too. Dude, how many times have me and you talked to artists and said, "Why do you put your fucking music on Spotify?" We ask them that all the time, and none of them have an answer.
Well, because they just do it because that's the way it's done.
That's the way it's done, exactly. And that's nonsense. And that is what these record labels are 1,000% capitalizing on.
You're right. Yeah.
The fact that these artists that will sell, they don't have to sell a bunch. Night Ranger, I'm just throwing a name out there, and I have no knowledge of their deals or anything like that, but Night Ranger puts out a record. They're going to sell 10,000 hard copies of it, around the world, and they're going to do 5 million streams of it. So that's worth X amount of money. 10,000 times 10 is $100 million. Is that right? Here we go, Chris Aiken math. But but if that's $1 million and 5 million plays at a couple cents a thing is maybe another $1 million. It's a $2 million made for a $20,000 investment from the label to put out a record.
Yeah.
That makes sense to them.
That makes sense. Yeah, of course.
And so why would they go and invest in developing something new, developing a new technology? Dude, I'm making 100 times what I invest in just throwing it out there the old way, and I'm going to keep making that money until it's dead.
Yeah.
Until it's dead and gone, and then that's the next guy's fucking problem to figure out how to fix it.
Well, that's
what's going on.
Well, and that next guy is going to have the problem, and
yeah,
he needs to fucking fix it. You know what I mean?
I agree, but I just don't think.
I hear you.
I think you're approaching this from a place of passion.
Well, passion, hope, and passion. Yeah. I mean, I listen. Trust me. I mean, obviously, you're making total sense in everything you're throwing out there with this. From a business standpoint in terms of dollars and cents, there's no doubt. My thing is just there's gonna have to be. I just think things go in cycles. I'm not, like I said, I definitely agree with you in terms of it's never going to be the way it once was. That has taken me a little while to just admit to myself that it's not going to be the same. But I do believe, that there's going to be a point in time, and I think, not that we're seeing, but we're starting to see just from some of these young bands that we see out there that are in their young 20s playing some of this, like using like a Dirty Honey, for example, yes, I think what's happening now is the labels are going, great, yeah, we can go ahead and spend money on a Dirty Honey, a band that sounds like, has like a similar to like a Guns N' Roses or Black Crowes sound.
Yeah.
Or we could just focus on the Black Crowes and Guns N' Roses and push that on the people because it's already known, it's already hits.
Yeah. We could talk those two guys that hate each other into doing 2 tours and making, $500 million or $200 million or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that makes more sense to them. It's like, okay, well, we can build Dirty Honey for 5 years and maybe it'll get there. Or we could take these two guys, we could pay them a shit ton of money to pretend they like each other and go out and sing the songs that people know, and we'll make 10 times more money.
Yeah, no, it definitely, and that is, obviously that's a very discouraging thing, in terms of the future music. And so, like I said, man, I'm just trying to look at the glass half full. You've got it half empty, and you make a lot of sense.
I have it this empty. It's completely empty.
Completely empty. Either way, it sucks. And, we just got to, like I said, hopefully everyone just kind of does their part and something happens, magically where there's at least some future for this music because, it's definitely a dim outlook right now.
It is. Look, the bottom line is the only thing that all of us can do is support the artists that we like that are new. And I'm not even saying don't support your artists that are old, but obviously support them too. But
I mean, do you need 5 Metallica shirts? Or could you have 1 or 2 and then you spend, those other 2 or 3 shirts could go to some of the new bands,
I mean, that's it. Buy a hat.
Exactly.
I mean, that's like, I don't really wear band shirts, but I have a shit ton of hats. I buy all kinds of hats or tchotchkes or something. I try, and if it's a band I really like, or I want to see successful, like I bought the Plush record. I bought it on download. I bought the Dirty Honey record on download. Do I need to? No, I have fucking YouTube Music. I get them both for nothing. And plus, I'm in the business. I could literally pick up my phone and text Mark or Mariah, and they would send it to me signed. But I want to support. And I know you're the same way. I know you go out and support.
I got my Dirty Honey vinyl I bought at their show for $50. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's you support because you want, because you genuinely have a passion for what they do. Not necessarily those bands. I mean, I'm sure you like Dirty Honey. I do too.
Oh yeah.
But I think your passion is more toward what we're losing. And I think that might be why guys like us have such a passion for it now.
We feel it's losing. Yeah.
We see it leaving.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
You're absolutely right, man. 100%. It sucks. But with that said, all right, we're coming up here about an hour and 20. So I think we've done a pretty detailed job on this topic.
Yeah,
But
I'd
so
say.
yeah, so in closing, I mean, anything else you want to say before we wrap this one up?
No, man, this was fun. Just
Just
fun
go
in
out
the
there and
most
support.
morbid way ever.
I know. But once again, we can't say enough. Just continue, please, to support these artists and these bands
Yeah.
because this. I think just like a lot of things in life, I think a lot of us took this for granted, thinking this was gonna the way the music industry was coming up with all these new bands and new scenes and everything, it was gonna be like that forever. And as we're seeing, we are slowly losing something. We're watching a slow
Sure.
death of something that we all loved and that was a big part of our lives. So I really
Yep.
hope that people need to really give these younger bands a chance. I understand it's not easy to find, where they are. Some people just don't know how to find these bands. They just don't. They never used to like looking for them. So they just
Yeah.
rely on stuff being fed to them.
Sure.
Well, we do a lot of these interviews with these bands on Aftershocks. You do a bunch on Chris Akins Presents. So just, give them a shot and,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
all I can say.
look, forget us. I'll give you guys the easiest, simplest way to find new music. Whatever band you like, pick one of them, type in the name of the band, 2022 sounds like. That's it.
That's true.
That's it. Just type it into Google, whatever comes up. And this is what people should be doing anyway. One time a week, do that. One time a week, say 2022 new band sounds like Warrant, whoever it is. Type it in, whatever band pops up, watch their video. Dedicate 5 whole minutes into finding something new. I guarantee you, if you do that for 90 days, you will find one band that you really enjoy.
I think more than one band. Yeah, exactly.
But I guarantee
at least
one.
At least
I
one.
guarantee 1 out of 12. You have 12 weeks. You do it once a week. One of the 12 will be something you'll be like, wow, I really didn't realize this was out there.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. But you can't be lazy. That's really what it is. You have to make the effort because as we've talked about here today, these labels, these music companies, Spotify, YouTube, whatever, they have no interest at all in helping you.
Yeah, none at all. And they're not going to, so it is.
No.
It's up to the fans and the artists themselves to really drive this thing. It is.
Exactly.
It is.
But there's tons of it to find. I don't care who your favorite band is. There's somebody that sounds like them today.
Absolutely.
There just is.
Absolutely. No doubt. And with that, we're going to wrap this up. All right. Great discussion, Chris. And we'll see everybody next time.